Are you a US high school student who maybe wants to use college as a way to get out of the United States and maybe study somewhere else, somewhere that also speaks English? Well, lucky for you, that is what we're going to talk about in today's video. My name's Christina of Ivy Lounge Test Prep. For the past 15 years, I've helped high schoolers all over the globe get into their dream schools by helping them dramatically raise their SAT and ACT test scores and write compelling college application essays. So, today's video, we are going to discuss 6 different colleges or universities that you could apply to in Australia or New Zealand. So if you've been in my universe for a bit, you may have seen a video about US testing requirements if you're applying to colleges in Canada. Then there was one about applying to schools in the United Kingdom. And then there was one about Scottish and Irish colleges. But this one, we are completing our nice little tour around the globe of English speaking colleges and universities. And we are going to discuss specifically 5 places in Australia and 1 place in New Zealand. So let's get started. So, our first university we are going to discuss is the University of Melbourne in Australia. So, if you are a US high school student and you want to apply down under to the University of Melbourne, you are going to have to submit some type of test score. And as I will show you in just a second, you really have 2 options. One of the options is an SAT or an ACT. And then the other option is you could forego an SAT or ACT if you submit 3 to 4 APs. And then there are some specific guidelines. So I am going to show you the webpage that tells you everything you need to know. So this is the page on the University of Melbourne's website specifically for US high school students who are applying to their university. So as you will notice when we scroll down, everything, and you'll notice this too if you watched any of the other videos about like England or the schools in Scotland or Ireland, everything depends on like what course of study you want to study, right? So when we scroll down this page and we look at which degree you are going to be pursuing, we have options. Now, there's a test score option 1. Now, this is going to be minimum SAT or ACT scores that you would need to get. That's one path to being able to apply. The next path is I'm going to skip the SAT or the ACT, and instead I am going to submit AP scores. And then you'll see something in a second that looks a little funny, but I will explain what it is. So just to note, they also have required GPAs. So like, yeah, your transcripts matter, but we're not talking about that here. In this video, we're like, what are the standardized test scores that you need to apply? So you're going to need to make sure that, your transcript is good enough to get you in. There is some sort of English language requirement, which they do mention is like, you can fulfill that by getting a 3 or above on one of the APs in English. They have certain prerequisites depending on which course you want to study. But this is what we're here to look at. We're here to look at how do you know what test score you need so that you can apply. So we're going to look at the degree name. So over here, I don't think you're applying for agriculture. Maybe you are and you're going to surprise me, but let's look at something else. Okay, you want to do liberal arts. Cool. So then your options here would be getting a 1320 minimum on the SAT, getting a 28 composite minimum on the ACT. This stat, that is not a thing that we tend to take here in the US. That's like an Australian standardized test that you could take. I don't actually know enough about that, but the ones that I do know about are these 2. So you could do an SAT or an ACT, right? Those are the minimums. Or you could do, this is how they word it, an AP exam aggregate score of 13. So what they mean by this is they want you to submit 3 to 4 AP tests. Now, it only counts if you got a 3 or above on one of these, right? And they want all, like for the ones that you got a 3 or above on, it needs to be at least 13 points. So that could look like a 5, and a 3. That could look like a three, a three, a three, and a four. So either one of those, you're submitting, three tests, you're submitting four tests. So between three and four tests, all of the numbers have to be three and above, and they need to add to this 13. Does that make sense? Over here, biomedicine, we would be needing either an SAT of 1400 plus, an ACT of a 30 plus, or an AP aggregate score of 18, which might look like two fives and two fours. So you're submitting four APs, and two of them are the highest score, the five, and two of them are a four. So again, you can scroll, you can look at all of these, you can see what all the requirements are. They have them all here. But yeah, you're going to need to submit some type of test score, either SAT, ACT, or APs for the University of Melbourne. So now let's discuss our second university, also in Australia, and this is Australian National University, or ANU. So again, we are going to have a minimum SAT or ACT score that you will need to get. You don't get an option two of doing APs in lieu of SAT or ACT. So you will, in fact, have to do one of the main standardized tests that we're talking about here. But it all is dependent on your course of study, which by now should be no surprise to you. So let me show you where you're going to look, because the first thing you're going to do is look up the course of study that you want to study. And once you find that, then I will show you how we are going to determine your minimum SAT or minimum ACT score. Okay, so here we are. This page here is programsandcourses.anu.edu.au. Okay, so that's the website you're going to want to go to. And you're going to search for something. Sure, let's do biology. Okay, I'm going to search. I want to do an undergraduate over here. Oh, let's see. What if I want to do Bachelor of Health Science? I could do that. Now, here's what I'm looking for, right? This ATAR number, which is like, what in the world is an ATAR number? Don't bother. It's like their ranking system. It's different from the ones we had in the UK, but they call it ATAR. And basically, the higher it is, it's going to correlate to a higher SAT or ACT minimum score. So let's say you wanted to do a Bachelor of Genetics, and that's only a 3-year program. You would have an ATAR of 85. But let's say you wanted to do an Advanced Honors Bachelor of Science degree, also undergraduate. That would be an ATAR of 90. Okay, so then this is what we are going to look at. Now there is another page. And so this one is for the ACT. If you are a US American student, right, and you are using the ACT as your test of choice, then this is the one that relates that ATAR score to the minimum ACT score you need. So remember, we looked up an 85. So for that first one we did, it was an 85. And so that would be the ANU entrance rank, or that ATAR number. And so that would mean that the indicative score required for you would need a 25 composite on your ACT. Now, that other one, the one that was an honors Bachelor of Science, that one had an ATAR of 90. So then you would need an indicative score required, in other words, minimum ACT score of a 27 composite. And if you go up, why not? Let's look at something else. Let's look up psychology. Right. So if you want to do a bachelor's of neuroscience, philosophy, neuroscience, and psychology, you would have an ATAR of 97. If you want to do bachelor's of philosophy, ATAR of 99. Literally, you're over here like for the first one that I mentioned, the ATAR of 97, you would need a 32 composite. For the bachelor's of philosophy, you would need a 35. Go figure. So that's if you are doing the ACT, right? But now what if you want to do the SAT? So there's a separate page over here. So this is for USA, right? And then this is for people taking the SAT. So again, look at those entry ranks. So remember, we had seen one in the biology category that was an 85 ATAR, and for the SAT, that would be a 1210 minimum. that one that was a 90 HR score, you would need a 1270 minimum on your SAT. Those psychology ones that we just looked at, the HR of 97, you would need a 1390 minimum. Or the one that was a 99, I think it was Bachelor's of Philosophy, you would need a 1470 plus. So those are minimum scores. So that, my friends, it's everything you need to know about the testing requirements if you are applying to Australian National University. So again, if you are new to my universe, my name is Christina of Ivy Lounge Test Prep. And for a decade and a half, I have been helping high schoolers all over the world get into their dream colleges by helping them dramatically raise their SAT and ACT test scores and write very compelling and authentic college application essays. So now I have a question for you. And that is, are you thinking of applying to a school not in the United States for your undergraduate education? If you are, please tell me in the comments below. I read them and I'm curious and I want to know like who you are and what you're thinking of. So if that is you, please comment below. While you're at it, go ahead and just like this video. And then also while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And then that way, every week when I post the latest in SAT, ACT, or college application, like tricks, hacks, updates, you will be the first to know. So now let's talk about our third university, which is the University of Sydney. And I went to Sydney a long time ago when I was a kid with my dad, and it is very beautiful. The coffee is amazing, and the Opera House is gorgeous. So for the University of Sydney, yes, SAT and ACT scores are required. You know, one of them, you don't have to send both, obviously, plus your high school diploma. So they want a test score and they want you to have graduated from high school, which should be obvious, right? If you are applying for undergraduate somewhere. So this is how you are going to figure out, again, it all is based on your degree of study. This is how you are going to figure out what you need test score wise. So I'm going to show you a page. You are going to go to this page and I'm going to show you where to look because you kind of have to like poke around a bit. But basically, they give you a PDF, right, of their 2025, and I'm sure next year they will update it again if you're watching this video later. And they have one for domestic students, but that's not you. If you are outside of Australia, then you would be an international student, right? So you would be clicking on that. You would open up the PDF. And this is the part where it gets a little tricky because the big charts are like split between two pages. So you kind of have to keep it straight. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay. So this is where you are going to look. So sydney.edu.au, study applying how to apply undergraduate recognized qualifications.html. So it's very long, but this is where you're going. So the recognized qualifications. So you are going to go over here. So do you see how you've got two of them? There's a PDF here, but this is for domestic students. That's not you because you do not live in Australia. You're going to do this one because you are a US student and you are going to click on this. Okay. Now we are going to open up that guide. So this is the PDF. Okay. 2026 admissions guide. They have updated it. So this is the part that is slightly annoying is that you get the actual, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay. You get the actual course names on the left, but then you have to go to like the next page to see the US requirement. So this is what we're looking at. Here's the US requirement if you're taking the ACT, and then this is the US requirement if you're taking the SAT. So we're looking at these two, but you have to like keep the line straight. So for example, let's say you want to do arts and social studies over here are B arts and B advanced studies. And I don't even know what that means, but sure, let's do that one. So you have to keep it straight. So we're under the gray arts and social sciences tab, and we are one, two, it's the third one, right? So I have to go to the next page. It was under this gray and it was the third one. So 1, 2, 3. So this one. So for the US, For a US student, if you're taking the ACT, you would need a 33. If you're in the US and you're taking the SAT, where was I? It was the third one after the second gray. I would need a 1450. And so those are minimums. So it's annoying because you have to kind of keep what your row and column straight in your head. So that's how you figure out exactly your minimum SAT or ACT score that you need if you're applying to the University of Sydney. So our fourth university, also in Australia, is the University of Queensland. So the University of Queensland gives you some options, right? Kind of like our first university, the University of Melbourne did. So you can take the SAT or the ACT, or you can fulfill your standardized testing requirement by taking 2 to 4 AP exams. So I'm going to show you exactly where to look to figure out what you need for your course of study. Awesome. So here we are at the University of Queensland in Australia's webpage, and you can get there by, from home, going to study options, and find a program. So what we are going to do is, you could literally, scroll all of them and pick there, or you could put something in here in the search and try it out there. So why not? I'm feeling like psychology today. So let's just go to psychology and let's search. So all of these things. Now I want undergraduate, so I'm going to click that on the left. So now I have many fewer results. Let's just do the very first one, Bachelor of Psychological Science Honors. Fine. Let's just do that one. So when we click on this is how we're going to do this. So you are going to, yes, I'm an international student. I already have clicked international, and it figured that out because I am searching from where I live, which is in Jersey City, New Jersey, in the United States. But you've got to make sure you're toggled over on this side that you're international because you are outside of Australia. And when do you want to begin study? Well, it's too late now. So let's do 2026 or 2027 semester. Oh, what are we doing? Yes, we are semester one. That means you're starting at the beginning of their school year. Okay, so where your qualification is from. So this is basically you're going to pick the country where you come from. So United States is like all the way at the bottom. There you go. So now, because now it knows we're in the US, which qualification? So this is the part where you get to select, ACT, if that's what you're going to be doing, or SAT, if that's the test that you're going to send, or AP. So let's just look. Okay, fine. It's the first one. So advanced placement examinations. So if this is how we are sending in a standardized test score, then their minimum entry score is a 14. So what that means is minimum of 2 AP tests, maximum of 4 AP tests, you need to add up to 14 points. So maybe that looks like you got a 3, a 4, a 3, and a 4, and then that adds up to 14 points. And it took you 4 tests to do that. Maybe you did 3 AP exams and you got a 5, a 5, and a 4, and then that adds up to your 14. Got it? So this is a minimum, but that is how that we make sense of this. Let's say, though, you're not submitting AP scores. You are going to submit, yes. So you're going to submit an ACT. So the minimum entry score for, again, psychological science honors, you would need at least a 28 composite on your ACT. Now, this is the part that gets a little funny. Let's say you're doing the SAT. They have the SAT 1, 2005 to January 2016. No, this test has not been around for almost a decade. That is not the one. I don't know why it's still on their website. You're doing this one. This is SAT 1 since March 2016. So in other words, when it's out of 1600 again, which is the current digital SAT is out of 1600 again. So you're picking this one, and they would want a minimum of 1250. Got it? So, and then, of course, there's the fee, and it's going to be way higher than if you were domestic, but such is life, right? So that is how you would find out what are the qualifications that would meet the requirement if you are applying to the University of Queensland. So, our last of the Australian universities that I want to cover today is the University of New South Wales, or UNSW. So, for US high school students, it will require that you submit an SAT or ACT test score along with your high school diploma, which again, that part should be obvious. So, I will show you where to search, but basically, you are going to search your course or degree that you want to study. And then when you do that, it's very similar to the one we just did. You're going to click the international button. You're going to toggle the button so it knows that you are coming from outside Australia. And then you are going to then view the admissions criteria. You're going to enter US as the country, and then you will see the requirements. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Awesome. So here is UNSW, which is in Sydney. And if we go here, unsw.edu.au/study/find-a-degree-or-course. So that's where you will go. And I'm going to search for, I don't know, chemistry. Why not? I don't know why I'm feeling all sciencey today. Um, Yes, Bachelor of Medicinal Chemistry. Sure. How would you do that with law? That's so funny. Okay, so I'm picking this one, and I am going to remember I said toggle the little button that says international. So, yes, now we're international. And over here, it tells us that this is a 4-year course. You have to actually show up. It's not virtual, blah, blah. But you're going to click here. So entry requirements, view all admissions criteria. So when you pick whatever your course of study is going to be, you're going to make sure to toggle to international, and you're going to go over here and click view all admissions criteria. So now we get here, and I studied in, this is where we're going to enter United States of America. So it's all the way at the bottom. There we go. So, okay, so here are the minimums. Notice the SAT, but before 2016, that is not an SAT that you will have taken. You were like in elementary school when that one was still around. Okay. So that is not us. You cannot get over a 1600 on the SAT that we do now. You would be looking at this one, the SAT that's after 2016, the one that's out of 1600. So you would need a minimum of an 1180 in order to apply if you are doing the SAT. Let's see if this says anything else. Yeah, must be provided in conjunction with evidence of successful completion of senior secondary. Okay, your transcript has to look good too. That's basically what that's saying. Okay, but you have a minimum of an 1180. Again, disregard this one at the top. They really need to update their website. Let's say you're doing the ACT. Now you're looking at this one. So you would need a 24 composite minimum, right? So these are not ranges. It's like this is the minimum. You just got to get over it. If you are an international baccalaureate student, which most of you are not, but if you were, then that could be your pathway. So you would need a 30 for your points, and then you could forego the ACT or the SAT if you were applying to UNSW. But basically, this is how you do it. You have to go through this whole thing, click international, all admissions criteria, say you're coming from the US, disregard the very first line because that's the old SAT. That's like literally 2 versions of the SAT ago. So those are all 5 of the Australian universities I wanted to talk about, but we can't leave out New Zealand. So let's talk about the University of Auckland. For the University of Auckland, and I will show you the PDF that says so, but I'm just going to kind of give you the summary now. They require the SAT or an aggregate of 2 to 4 AAP exams. And again, only scores of 3 plus. So you got a 3, you got a 4, you got a 5 on the AP exam. Only those count of your 2 to 4 APs towards like an aggregate score. So we've seen this in a couple of the other universities in Australia. This is where it's funny. It says the ACT is also acceptable and is assessed on a case-by-case basis. I don't know if that's still true. You might need to contact them and see, but I will show you what I'm talking about. I was not making this up. So let me show you. Okay, so this is a PDF on their website. Honestly, if you were to just Google University of Auckland, like US testing requirement, or just Google like specific entry requirements, you will find this. Okay, so I basically pulled it up. And yes, this is very, very small, but I will show you what we are looking at. Um, there we go. So here are the programs to study on the left side. And this part, they give you SAT and then they give you US, like advanced placement exams. But they don't give you like other things. Like, yeah, no, they don't give you ACT up here. And that's like real weird because normally pretty much every college or university, like around the globe, if they take one, they'll also take the other. So it's funny that they don't exactly put that there. But let's just say that you want to do a bachelor's of architectural studies. Cool. So we go up here. The SAT minimum for that would be a 1275, which is very weird because you SAT scores end in zero. So I guess 12, make it 1280 to be safe, because then that's above the 1275. That's just very bizarre. It's very bizarre, University of Auckland. Okay, but I digress. I'm like, are there other ones that are cool? Like, okay, you want to do a Bachelor of Engineering, you would need a minimum of a 1300, um, including mathematics, requires calculus and physics. Interesting. Okay. So this might be a talk to the admissions officer there, or reach out. But yes, they do tell you minimums uh on this PDF, but they only tell you SAT minimums. But then they tell you what your AP exam aggregate would be. So this one would be a 12, including math and physics. So you would need to, if you were from the US applying for a bachelor's of engineering, you would need to take between 2 and 4 APs, but only the ones that were 3+ count. And they would have to, all the ones that you took that you scored a 3, 4, or 5 on, they would need to add up to more than 12 points. But then this one says one of them has to be math and one of them has to be physics. Okay. So this is the part that's hilarious, which is right. So we have SAT. This is the fine print, right? The score is an aggregate of evidence-based reading, writing, blah. The reason, okay. Yes, and you also need a high school diploma. Now, this is where it talks about the ACT is also acceptable and is assessed on a case-by-case basis. So to be considered for entry, applicants must submit the results of they misspelled their ACT test results, and let me scroll, where we go. And a high school diploma with transcripts from a US regionally accredited high school with above average grades. Cool. So you can do the ACT, but you have to contact them and hope they accept it. They should. And then, of course, the APs. So minimum of 2 exams, maximum of 4 to get that congregate, and then only grades of 3+ are count towards the aggregate. So that, my friends, is how you would apply to the University of Auckland if you are coming from the US. So I hope this was super helpful for you so that you could figure out, like, if you do not want to stay here for your 4 years in college, that there are other options, other places that in fact speak English and where one could study and maybe have a little less chaos during the next 4 years. So if you haven't checked it out, please look at the other videos I put in the series about applying to Canada, applying to schools in the UK, and applying to schools in Scotland and Ireland. I will also include those in the links below.